Heartwarming call from CEO Dad transforms airline after twin black girls are kicked off flight. Marcus was gearing up for the long-awaited family trip to see their grandmother. The buzz of excitement in the air was palpable. His twin daughters, Amaya and Zuri, were practically bouncing off the walls with anticipation. They had saved every penny, every crumpled dollar bill stuffed into their piggy banks, to treat themselves to the promise of a warm hug from their grandmother and her famous chocolate chip cookies. To them, this trip was everything, but it wasn't just a simple journey, it was a testament to Marcus's hard work as an airline mechanic. He worked grueling hours, often missing dinner and bedtime stories, just to afford the little extras that meant so much. As he watched his daughters squeal with delight, he felt his heart swell with pride. They were the light of his life, his reason to push through each day with grit and determination. They arrived at the airport, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzing with energy. The girls held hands, eyes wide, ready to embark on a new adventure. But that excitement turned to shock when moments later, a harried gate agent approached them. There was a mistake, a misunderstanding. The twins were being removed from the flight, and Marcus's heart sank. Why? He demanded, his voice shaking. They don't fit the profile, the agent snapped, a coldness lacing her words. Racial prejudice hung in the air, suffocating their happiness. Amaya and Zuri's cheers turned into tearful confusion, and the laughter in their household felt a million miles away. Before he could react, a storm brewed online. Social media erupted in outrage. Community members joined forces, sharing their own stories of similar experiences, creating a tidal wave of support for Marcus and his daughters. The news spread faster than he could comprehend or control. Just when despair threatened to overwhelm him, his phone rang. It was Pamela, the airline's CEO. As she introduced herself, a wave of determination surged through Marcus. "This incident has no place in our company," she said, her voice compassionate yet firm. "I need your help." She invited him and the girls to speak at an open forum, a platform to voice their pain and bring awareness to the issue. Marcus looked at Amaya and Zuri, who nodded, tears still in their eyes but ready to stand tall. How could he tell them they might truly have a chance to change things? "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The day of the forum weighed heavily on Marcus's shoulders. He felt the fear for his daughters and the weight of their reality, but within that fear glimmered hope. Amaya and Zuri were ready, determined to turn their heartbreak into strength, turning whispers of fear into roars of change. When they stepped on stage, eyes fixed on them, emotions danced in the air. Would their voice be heard, or would this just be another moment of silence? The moment crystallized. As they were about to begin, a comment from the audience ignited a fierce debate regarding merit, dignity, and justice, pushing everyone toward the edge of their seats. Could this be the start of real transformation, or just another flicker of hope swallowed by shadows? The atmosphere in the auditorium crackled with tension as Marcus stood alongside his daughters. He felt their little hands trembling in his, a mix of fear and resolve coursing through their small bodies. They were the center of attention, not just for their story but for so many others who had faced similar injustices. Amaya took a deep breath, her big brown eyes scanning the sea of faces. They were filled with hope, empathy, and a demand for change. Zuri's fingers intertwined with her sister's, grounding them both in this moment. Marcus couldn't help but smile at their strength, even as his heart raced. "Are you ready?" he whispered. They nodded, determination replacing the earlier uncertainty. The moderator, an eloquent but firm woman in her 50s, gestured for silence. "Thank you all for being here today. We're here to listen to learn from Marcus and his daughters, Amaya and Zuri." As she finished speaking, the audience held its breath. Marcus stepped forward, the mic feeling heavy yet familiar in his grip. Thank you for having us. This isn't just our story, it's about every family who is treated differently because of the color of their skin. His voice wavered, but the passion was undeniable. He shared how the girls had dreamed of this trip, how it was supposed to be a joyful reunion filled with laughter. He described the shock he felt when they were told to leave the flight, the feeling of helplessness creeping in. The room filled with murmurs of discontent as his words wove a tapestry of emotion, connecting every listener with the pain his daughters had faced. When he gestured for the girls to join him, the audience leaned in closer, intrigue sparking in their eyes. These are my daughters, Amaya and Zuri. They are brilliant, full of life, and they deserve to fly just like anyone else. Amaya, her voice quiet yet steady, stepped forward to speak. I just wanted to go see my grandma. I don't understand why I was made to feel like I didn't belong. Her tears glistened under the stage lights, and the audience shifted, feeling her sorrow. Zuri wiped her sister's cheek and added, we thought flying was supposed to be fun. I want to feel safe and happy when I fly. As they exchanged words, their vulnerability resonated deeply with the audience. There were gasps, soft murmurs of encouragement, and it felt as if an invisible thread connected everyone in the room. They were not just sharing their experience, they were inviting others into their journey, urging them to feel the weight of prejudice in an industry that should symbolize freedom. Suddenly, a hand shot up in the back of the room. A young man, voice raised with passion, spoke up. We can't let this sort of thing happen again. How do we create real change? What can we do? Marcus felt the fire ignite. This was a moment for accountability, a moment for transformation. We need to ensure our voices are heard. He urged. Every time we face injustice, we cannot stay silent. We must speak up, support each other, and demand change together. A wave of energy swept over the auditorium. More questions arose, each more passionate than the last. Ideas flowed like a river, the atmosphere evolving from despair to hope, from silence to a chorus of change. But just as the conversation began to build momentum, Marcus noticed something out of the corner of his eye. A group of airline executives, including Pamela, the CEO, were filing into the hall, each face focused and ready to listen. Would they truly hear, or were they just here for a show? As eyes met his, Marcus felt a surge of uncertainty rush through him. The tide was turning, but what did it really mean? And just when he thought the path forward was clear, he realized this was just the beginning. What actions would the airline take next? Would their voices echo, or would they fade into the background? Little did he know, the journey was just about to take a turn that none of them anticipated. As the executives settled in, the atmosphere shifted slightly. It was as if a heavy curtain had fallen, separating the raw emotion from the cold reality of business. Marcus took a deep breath, trying to steady the rising tide of anxiety that gnawed at him. Then, sensing his daughter's fear, he squeezed their hands tighter. They needed him right now. Pamela, the CEO, sat with an air of authority, her eyes scanning the crowd, as if assessing the backlash. Her expression was unreadable, making Marcus's heart race. Would she be moved by their story, or would she dismiss it as just another public relations issue? Let us give our audience a chance to ask questions, she finally announced, her voice calm and measured. We can afford to hear them out. An older gentleman jumped up, his shaky voice loud with urgency. What assurances can you give us that this won't happen again? We need more than just promises, we need commitments. Marcus felt the weight of those words. Trust had been compromised, not just for his family, but for countless others who had felt the sting of rejection based on who they were. The hall filled with nods of agreement and murmurs of support. Pamela leaned toward the microphone, clearly preparing for damage control. I understand the frustrations. This is a learning opportunity for us. We're committed to creating an environment where all passengers feel welcome and safe. Words mean nothing if they're not backed by action. Zuri exclaimed, her small voice echoing with a fierceness that surprised everyone. She had always been the quieter twin, but here she was, bold and unyielding, the audience surged with a renewed sense of purpose. They encouraged Zuri with applause and supportive cheers. In that moment, Marcus felt an indescribable surge of pride for his daughters. They weren't just victims of a situation, they were catalysts for change. With a newfound confidence, Amaya spoke again. If you really want to change, then make it happen. Talk is easy, but we need to see real steps being taken. Pamela glanced at her team, and Marcus saw the gears turning in her mind. The executives exchanged looks, and for the first time, uncertainty seemed to ripple through their professional facade. Then a young woman stood up, her voice shaking but strong. What about training your staff? For understanding inclusion, for combating bias? We can't keep letting this kind of behavior slide. Marcus could feel the momentum shifting. With each question and suggestion, the barriers between them had begun to break down. Ideas flourished in the air, like flowers bursting through cracks in the pavement. The executives could no longer ignore the demand for change. Pamela took a deep breath. You raise compelling points. We will draft a new action plan and invite community leaders to help us shape it. Cheers erupted, but deep inside, Marcus felt a mix of hope and skepticism. Words were only as powerful as the actions that followed them. He locked eyes with Pamela, searching for sincerity in her expression. Make sure to include the voices of those most affected, not just your team in a boardroom. Include us. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably. There was a recognition that this was only the beginning of something significant. As the crowd continued to engage with the executives, a flicker of nervous anticipation replaced Marcus's initial uncertainty. He was ready for the follow-up meeting, ready to hold them accountable. But more than that, he was determined to ensure that Amaya and Zuri never felt the weight of unwarranted exclusion again. Yet, just as he began to envision the potential changes, Marcus caught something out of the corner of his eye, an unexpected figure rising from the crowd, eyes fixed intently on him. It was a member of the flight crew from that fateful day. What did they want to say? The moment hung, charged with emotion and questions. Why were they here? What stories were yet to unfold? As the figure stepped forward, Marcus felt his heart quicken. The flight attendant, a woman with warm brown eyes that hinted at both familiarity and conflict, seemed hesitant but determined. The crowd shifted, intrigued, as whispers rustled through the room like leaves in a breeze. Everyone's attention was caught, and the air thickened with expectation. Mr. Reed, she started, her voice catching just slightly. I've been meaning to talk to you since that day. Her gaze flicked momentarily to the twins, who were now gazing back with a blend of curiosity and caution. I know what happened was wrong, she continued, her tone trembling. I didn't agree with the decision to remove your daughters. It goes against everything I believe in. The crowd held its breath as she spoke, unsure of where this was heading. Marcus could feel a nervous knot tightening in his stomach. I'm here today to apologize, really apologize, she said, taking a cautious step closer to the front. I want to do more than say sorry. We need to own our mistakes, every single one, and create change. There was an electric charge in the room. Marcus saw the impact of her words wash over the audience. Touching moments of understanding and honesty began to ripple through those present. It was almost palpable, this bridge being created between those who felt wronged and those who had the power to make it right. Thank you, Amaya spoke, her voice strong yet soft. But we need more than apologies. We need accountability. The attendant nodded. I truly believe that we can make a difference. I've been talking to my coworkers since the incident, and we all agree that we need training on inclusivity. Real training, not just a seminar where we sit and nod. It has to be real conversations, real changes. Zuri chimed in, her voice ringing out clear and vibrant. It's important to make sure these conversations don't stop. They need to keep going after this meeting ends. As the crowd erupted in agreement, Marcus felt a wave of emotion crash over him. His daughters were leading the way, turning a painful experience into a movement. A movement that felt like it might just have the power to change the airline for the better. Pamela took a step closer to the flight attendant, her expression earnest. I appreciate your courage to speak up. We will consider your insights as we draft our action plan. Your voice matters, and it must be heard too. In that moment, the tension that had once filled the room began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. Yet, underneath that layer of optimism, Marcus couldn't help but worry. Would these words turn into actual change? Would the airline move beyond mere promises? As the dialogue continued, a familiar face emerged in the back of the room, an advocate known for her passionate activism. Marcus's stomach twisted with anticipation. What would she add to this already intense conversation? He hoped she would bolster their momentum, but he also sensed her presence might bring new complexities. Just as he thought that, her eyes locked onto his, a fraught exchange passing between them. Was she questioning the sincerity of what was unfolding? Did she sense the fragility in the room? He braced himself, suddenly realizing the next turning point could come from this one encounter. What would happen when she stepped forward to speak? What truths would she unveil? The advocate lifted her chin, letting the moment stretch, drawing the room's gaze like a magnet. There was an intensity in her long, dark hair and piercing green eyes that suggested years of battles fought and won, along with some lost. She finally stepped from the shadows, her presence a sharp contrast to the warmth of the attendant who had just confessed. "Thank you for your courage," she began, her voice steady yet commanding. "And while I respect the heartfelt nature of your apologies, we cannot allow this situation to be swept under the rug. This isn't just about words, it's about real impact, lasting impact." Tension crept back into the room as Marcus felt a shiver of uncertainty. He exchanged quick glances with Amaya and Zuri, both wearing expressions that reflected their shared concern. Would the advocate stir up a storm or spark a revolution? "We're all here because we want change," she pressed on, gesturing toward the crowd. "But let us not forget change will only come when those at the top take responsibility, too. When will the seats of power reflect the diversity and voices that should have always been there?" Marcus felt a flicker of fear. The fire she ignited was necessary, but did it threaten to overshadow their progress? As he looked at her intensely passionate face, he also sensed how much the crowd was drawn to her words. A whispered agreement ran like a current through the audience. "Real reform requires us to face uncomfortable truths," she continued, her eyes scanning the room. "I want the airline's leadership here. I want accountability from those who make the decisions that affect families like the Reeds." Amaya and Zuri exchanged glances of disbelief mixed with excitement. They had called for accountability, but to see it laid so boldly in front of them sent ripples through their resolve. Would the CEO, the very person whose authority loomed large, respond with humility or defensiveness? Behind the advocate, Marcus caught sight of a figure shifting uneasily, the flight attendant who had spoken first. Her expression had changed, portraying uncertainty as she weighed the forceful comments from the activist against her own hopeful message. "Speaking of accountability," the advocate added, pivoting back to the attendant, "you touched on training. Do you have the authority to turn those words into action? How can we trust that this will truly happen?" The attendant's eyes widened, her resolve seemingly faltering with the onslaught of demands. Marcus silently urged her forward, hoping she could rise to the challenge presented. Yes, I believe in those changes," she said slowly, her voice losing the confidence it initially had. "But it's not just up to me. We all need to come together. Our leaders need to listen." Marcus could feel anger bubbling beneath the surface. Change didn't just require conversation, it demanded action, and soon. He caught sight of his daughters, who wore expressions of concern mixed with determination. They had started this dialogue, he couldn't let it derail. "Then let us make this a pact," he called out, raising his voice to cut through the growing tension. "Let us hold each other accountable. One step at a time, we'll push until real change is not only promised but delivered." A murmur of agreement ran through the audience, but Marcus knew that would only be the beginning. He needed to capture the moment, to seal their mission with a sense of urgency. They needed the outlines of a plan, something concrete that could grow from this pivotal gathering. As the advocate locked eyes with him, an understanding flickered between them. But she wasn't done just yet. And we also need to remember, she added pointedly, that this is not just about families today, it's about families for generations. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Her question hung in the air, weighty and unresolved. It was an almost painful reminder of what was at stake. What would they do next? The flicker of hope ignited now faced a harsh reality. Would they all rise to the challenge, or would this moment slip away? As the crowd murmured, Marcus felt the pulse of change grow stronger. But it was a pulse filled with uncertainty. What next step would they take? Was it enough merely to aim for discussion or bear down for a fight? The air crackled with anticipation as Marcus stepped forward, heart racing. He wasn't just taking the stage for himself, he was stepping up for every family that had been wronged, every voice that had been silenced. The room still hummed with regard for the advocate, but he knew it was time for action, to seize the moment, to ignite change. Let us not just promise to hold each other accountable, he began, his voice steady. Let us commit to making a real difference together. It starts here, and it starts now. The crowd shifted, eyes wide and focused, waiting for him to elaborate. The advocate nodded, impressed, and he felt a surge of determination. They needed a plan. They needed a blueprint they could all rally behind. I propose we form a task force, an alliance of flight attendants, airline leadership, advocates, and families affected by discrimination. We will meet regularly, share experiences, and develop training programs, he declared, fueled by the energy surrounding him. Amaya and Zuri leaned in closer, their excitement palpable. They had always watched their father fight for justice, but this felt different, vibrant. It wasn't just talk, it was the beginning of something profound. More murmurs of agreement surfaced among the attendees. Marcus pressed on, let us not go back to business as usual. We will hold town halls, engage with our community, and prioritize safety and dignity for all. His hands gestured broadly, encompassing not only the present gathering but the broader community, future generations, and the strangers affected by similar experiences. As the ideas poured from him, the advocate stepped beside him, amplifying his words, urging those present to consider the urgency of their shared mission. Right now, every day that passes is an opportunity lost. Let us ignite a movement that echoes far beyond these walls, she declared, her voice rising with conviction. Doubt still lingered in the back of Marcus's mind. Could they truly create this coalition? Would the powers that be listen? But the flicker of hope from his daughters fueled his resolve. Their unwavering belief pushed him onward. Suddenly, the flight attendant who had first spoken stepped forward. I want to be part of this, she said, her voice stronger now. I may not hold the highest position, but I have seen firsthand how our operations impact families. I want to help rebuild trust. A wave of warmth washed over the audience. It was a true moment of collective spirit that resonated deep within their hearts. Together, we can rewrite the narrative. Marcus exclaimed, his voice steady and passionate. But what about the leadership? Someone shouted from the crowd, voicing the underlying concern. A hush fell over the room, every face attentive. Marcus locked eyes with the advocate. Could they summon the leaders into this conversation? The question lingered, as tangible as the tension in the air. We'll demand their presence, he declared, his tone resolute. We want to confront them directly. We owe it to the families to press for transparency. The crowd erupted in agreement. He could feel the momentum building, hope crackling like electricity. But even in that energized moment, nagging concern wormed its way into his heart. What if they refused? He looked down the aisle, catching Zuri's wide-eyed gaze filled with belief. Amaya's expression mirrored her sister's, determination radiating from their youthful faces. They would hold the leaders accountable. He tightened his fists in resolve. As the applause echoed through the room, a thought loomed in Marcus's mind, how crucial it was to keep this momentum alive. He had ignited a spark, but it was just the beginning. Walking away without action seemed unthinkable now. Let us share our stories. Let us push together until every voice is heard, he concluded, creating a powerful image of unity and urgency. This isn't just a task force, this is our family and community standing side by side. With the echo of hope resonating throughout the room, one question loomed large: would the leadership show up and join in this fight, or would they remain absent, forcing the movement to take on a life of its own? The stage was set, and Marcus felt both the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility soaring. What would happen next? The room buzzed, an electric undercurrent that coursed through every participant. Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of possibility swirling in the air. He turned to see Amaya and Zuri still beaming with pride. Their faces were lit up with hope, and it fueled him more than he realized. Let us break into smaller groups, the advocate suggested, her voice breaking through the chatter. We can brainstorm specific ideas for the task force. If we all put our thoughts together, we can present a united front. Marcus nodded. Yes. Let us do that. He thought about the families, friends, and comrades who stood behind them, ready to take this leap of faith. As people formed circles around the room, sharing experiences and ideas, Marcus slipped out to a quiet corner. He leaned against the cool wall, feeling the rush of excitement settle into a gentle thrum in his chest. The weight of expectation still loomed large. What if the leadership didn't take them seriously? Dad, you okay? Zuri's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Yeah, sweet pea, I'm good. Just thinking, he smiled, crouching down to meet her eye level. Are you nervous? Amaya chimed in, her brow furrowing with concern. A little, but that's okay. It means I'm ready for a challenge, he said, giving each girl a gentle squeeze. We're doing something big. I can't let you two down. They nodded in understanding while holding onto his hands tightly, as if anchoring him in the moment. Suddenly, a voice rang out from across the room, pulling everyone's attention. Can we talk about the leadership's role in all this? A tall flight attendant stood, her red uniform crisp, her determination clear. We need their support if we're going to make real change. Protecting families starts at the top, another voice chimed in. A ripple of agreement flowed through the crowd. We have to demand respect and consideration, not just for us, but for every passenger. Marcus felt the heat of passion ignite again in the room. Conversations charged forward, ideas blossoming amidst the shared fire of experience and hope. Smiles and laughter bounced off the walls, mingled with fervent discussions of how they could practically influence real change. I think we should create a public platform, someone suggested. A petition, maybe. Let everyone know we're serious. Amaya tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Can we help with that? Of course, honey. You all are a huge part of this. His heart swelled with pride at their enthusiasm. The air shifted again, heavy with urgency as participants began to sketch out plans for their visibility and outreach. Each idea seemed to amplify the resolve within the room. Taking a deep breath, Marcus gathered everyone's attention once more. Folks, we need to stay committed. We've come this far together, let us not lose steam. We must plan to meet with airline leadership, share our collected experiences, and demand answers. Fists raised in solidarity punctuated his words. The support surged, a tide of collective ambition and determination. But then, just as hope soared, doubt slithered in again. Could they face those with power? Would the leaders genuinely listen or wave them off as just another group making noise? Marcus glanced over at the advocate, their eyes locking. She nodded, a silent vow between them. They were in this together. As the room hummed with excitement, he felt a sudden shift. The doors opened and, standing there with an unmistakable presence, was the CEO of the airline. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Have they come to hear us out? Marcus whispered to Amaya and Zuri, his heart pounding. The CEO stepped forward, scanning the room of hopeful faces. The moment felt suspended in time. Questions layered on top of each other in Marcus's mind. What would they say? Would this be a chance for real change? As he opened his mouth to speak, the weight of anticipation filled the air, and a quiet tension settled. Would this meeting become the pivot point, or would it slip through their fingers like sand? In that moment, everything hung in balance. The air felt thick with anticipation as the CEO stepped further into the room. Marcus held his breath, watching the man's face transform from a professional mask to one of genuine curiosity. This was not just another boardroom encounter, this was a human moment, and it pulsed with meaning. "Thank you for gathering here today," the CEO began, his voice steady but warm. "I heard about what's been happening, and I had to come meet you all. Your stories matter and they deserve to be heard." A ripple of chatter fluttered through those present. Hope mingled with disbelief. Marcus glanced at Amaya and Zuri, their eyes wide, processing the gravity of the moment. In the middle of such a critical conversation, they felt a sense of empowerment build in their chests. The CEO continued, "We pride ourselves on serving families and ensuring safe travels for everyone. It seems we've fallen short of those values lately." His gaze swept the room, landing on Marcus, who thrust his chin up in a subtle show of strength. "I want to hear from you all. What changes do you need to see?" Marcus took a deep breath, the words forming in his throat. "We need transparency and accountability. Families need to feel safe and respected. It's not just about flying, it's about dignity, about feeling welcomed." As he spoke, the air crackled even more. The energy in the room shifted. Others echoed his sentiments, sharing personal accounts of discomfort and fear during flight, stories that painted a clear picture of the need for change. Each voice rose like a chorus, harmonizing with certainty and resolute bravado. The CEO nodded attentively, jotting down notes, his expression laser-focused. "I appreciate your honesty. We can't move forward without confronting uncomfortable truths. We have to do better." The crowd leaned in, feeling a flicker of hope ignite within them. This was different. This wasn't just lip service. They sensed genuine engagement. The air was charged with possibility. Then, Zuri clasped her hands together and whispered, "Dad, can we share our ideas too?" Marcus turned to his daughters and felt a swell of pride. "Of course, girls. Always share your voice." Amaya tugged at the hem of Marcus's shirt. "Can we talk about how to make the planes more fun for kids? More family-friendly stuff?" With a grin, he nodded. "That's a fantastic point." Turning back to the CEO, he said, "These girls have wonderful ideas. Imagine how inclusive this airline could be if it catered to families in ways that genuinely support them." Before Marcus could continue, the CEO raised his hand. "Let us make that a priority. I want to hear both your thoughts on how we can create a welcoming space for families, and I'd also like to invite you all to collaborate on some initiatives." The room erupted into applause, voices overlapping in excitement. Hope surged higher as people exchanged ideas, narrowing in on what a new, progressive path could look like. Just as things began to feel overwhelmingly positive, someone in the back shouted, "Words won't be enough. We need concrete actions." Marcus felt that aching familiar sense of doubt, creeping back in. Sure, this was a step, but would it lead somewhere meaningful? Was it just a fleeting moment, or could it pave the way for lasting change? "Let me assure you, I'm committed to following this through," the CEO answered, sensing the resistance in the air. "I'll have my team work with yours. Together, we can implement the changes you're asking for. But I need you to hold me accountable." Before anyone could respond, Marcus raised his hand. "How can we ensure the level of communication stays consistent? We can't afford to slip through the cracks." The CEO looked him in the eye, the sincerity hanging heavy between them. "I promise, you will be the first to know about any developments. This isn't just about you, it's about our shared vision for a better future." With hope bubbling beneath the surface, Marcus felt a new tide washing in, reinvigorating their mission. But he knew the path was far from easy. They needed to maintain this momentum against the tide of bureaucracy. As the discussion continued, Marcus stole a glance at his daughters, their faces alight with excitement. They were part of something monumental, and he couldn't shake the feeling that change was on the horizon. But as the CEO shared ideas with the crowd, Marcus felt a nagging question linger around the edges: would they really implement their vision, or would it all fade away like so many promises before? And just as Marcus was about to step forward again, a sudden commotion erupted near the back of the room, drawing everyone's attention. What was happening now? The noise grew louder, sharp voices cutting through the hopeful buzz that had filled the room. Marcus turned to see a figure pushing through the throng, an intense look etched on her face. People began murmuring, their expressions shifting from excitement to concern. It was Jennifer, one of the mothers who had recounted her own painful experience just moments ago, her voice shaking as she spoke. "Jennifer. What's wrong?" Marcus called out, his heart racing. She reached him, breathless and frantic. "I just got a message. It's from one of the other moms. There's a protest happening outside. They're unhappy with what has been said in here. They think nothing will change." The weight of her words crashed down on him like a wave. Marcus looked back at the CEO, whose expression had shifted to one of apprehension. The momentum that had felt so promising now teetered on the edge. He scanned the crowd, noticing the mix of hope and anxiety spread across their faces. "Everyone," the CEO raised his voice, trying to regain control, "this means we have to act. We can't let this moment slip away. We need to show them that we hear their concerns. Transparency starts now." Marcus felt a rush of energy surge through the room. Heads nodded, fists clenched with determination. The CEO turned to him and asked, "Marcus, what should we do next? How can we take this conversation outside and show those people that change is happening?" Amaya tugged at his shirt, her small voice breaking through the chaos. "Can we invite them in? Let them see how serious this is." "Absolutely," Marcus replied, suddenly feeling more resolute. "Let's take our voices out there. Show them we're committed. Bring our families in." The mood shifted from fear to fighting spirit. People started standing, gathering their belongings, igniting a sense of purpose that spread from one person to the next like wildfire. Families began exchanging their stories once again, this time with an urgency that felt electric in the air. The CEO smiled, visibly impressed. "Let us form a united front. We'll go outside, and I'll address the crowd myself. This is the moment we prove that words alone aren't sufficient. Let's make it real." As the crowd moved in unison toward the exit, Marcus glanced at Zuri, who was holding Amaya's hand. Their faces radiated determination, eyes bright with courage. It was a sight that surged warmth through his chest. They were in this together, but they hadn't reached the door when another loud thud interrupted them, a disruptive bang against the glass. The crowd froze. Marcus turned, his heart racing again as he saw a handful of protesters shoving against the barriers, holding signs with slogans demanding change and justice. "Who are those people?" Zuri whispered, her eyes wide. "I don't know, but we're going to find out," Marcus said, feeling a thread of anxiety but determined to forge ahead. As the CEO opened the door, the noise from outside crashed into the room like an unrelenting tide. Voices clamored for attention. Marcus stepped forward, clutching his daughter's hands, ready to face whatever lay ahead. They were about to stand up for what they believed in, together, but before he could take a step out, a familiar face appeared in the crowd, one that sent a bolt of recognition through him. It was a former colleague from his days at the Airline, someone he thought he would never see again. What was she doing there, and how would this unfolding situation change everything? With wide eyes, Marcus recognized Claudia, a brilliant former manager who had fought tooth and nail for policies that fostered respect and inclusivity. She was part of their past, an ally and a friend. Her presence sent a spark of hope through him. Maybe this was precisely what they needed. "Claudia. He shouted over the chaotic noise. "What are you doing here?" She locked eyes with him, urgent yet reassuring. "I came as soon as I heard. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I want to help," she said, waving a sign of her own that read, "A promise of change." "That's the spirit." Marcus beamed, her conviction resonating deep within him. "We need strong voices now more than ever. Let us move outside. We can strategize with the crowd," Claudia urged, her fire igniting a fresh wave of determination within Marcus. The moment they stepped out, the atmosphere charged with both tension and eagerness. A solid line of protesters, their faces painted with frustration but also hope, shouted for accountability. "Why do you only listen to us when we scream?" One woman called out, her voice rising over the din.as. The CEO took his position in front of the protesters. Marcus felt the solid grip of his daughter's hands. He could sense their fear meeting their courage, their resolve mingling with uncertainty. He wanted to shield them from the chaos, but he also wanted them to see the power of standing up for justice. "Listen up," the CEO shouted, his voice cutting through the noise. "I am here because we have heard you. I am committed to making changes that truly matter. It's not enough for us to acknowledge the issue. We must work together to create solutions." The crowd fell silent, tension stretched as if time had paused for just a brief moment. "I invite all of you," he continued, "from families to advocates, to join us in creating a detailed action plan and agenda that we can stand on together. I want to assure you that we will not glaze over your needs." Marcus felt a wave of relief wash over the crowd as murmurs of agreement began again. Hope blossomed in the air. He turned to Amaya and Zuri and saw the flicker of realization in their eyes. They were witnessing change happen, real and tangible right before them. "I want accountability," a voice rang out from the crowd. "We want to see those actions come to life." "Yes. We demand regular meetings, transparency on progress, and community input," shouted another, and Marcus felt the fire grow brighter. The CEO nodded, likely accustomed to high-pressure situations, yet here he appeared different, refreshingly sincere. "We will establish regular town halls, invite your input, and ensure our training covers inclusivity in all dimensions of our operations. But we need allies. We need you all. Each of your experiences matters." A ripple of energy surged through the gathered families. Marcus watched as hands went up, voices warmed with renewed passion. Amaya's small hand shot up, and Marcus felt a swell of pride as his daughter waved enthusiastically. "We want to create kid-friendly spaces," she shouted, her smile radiating like a beacon. "Fun areas that make flying exciting for children." Zuri chimed in, "And we want to hear from other kids. What do they want, too?" The audience erupted in laughter, joy mixing with the urgency of their cause. It was not just about confronting prejudice anymore, it was about expanding the journey to ensure that families felt truly welcomed. A shadow of escape formed behind Marcus as Claudia spoke to another group forming nearby. Through her calm determination, she helped solidify the momentum building before them. The energy shifted, moved by a genuine desire for change. Then suddenly, Marcus's heart jolted as a television crew approached, the bright lights blaring like stars wanting to capture this moment. He felt butterflies in his stomach. This was their opportunity. The world had to see the strength of unity, the power of their efforts. "Let us share our story," Marcus called out, as he turned toward the cameras. "What began as pain turned into purpose. We are here not just for justice but for real, lasting change within this airline and beyond. Together, we'll create pathways for families to feel safe. We'll ensure that every mother, every father, every child is treated with dignity." With each powerful word, more faces turned to the screens, and the live audience felt it, an electric charge reverberating. The moment felt like an anthem, stirring the hearts of those present, and in that moment, as the voices layered together in a tapestry of hope and possibility, Marcus knew they would succeed. The future was not only bright with promise, it was waiting for the hands of those willing to mold it. And right then, that was exactly what they were ready to do. This was their time. United, and stronger than ever, they would transform not just their flight policies but perhaps reshape the very fabric of the airline industry. Everyone was invited to join them on their journey of change. Now, don't miss out on more stories that inspire real change. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can make a difference.